Welcome to lesson 4 in our Python course, where we learn Python by building the game of Snake. Here's the agenda for this lesson. We're particularly focusing on functions and making our code better. If you want the resources for the course as a whole, and if you want to follow along, this landing page is in the comments below, and it has a link to the repo, for example, and previous recordings. At the beginning of this code, there's a long comment which explains exactly the steps that we're going to do in this lesson. The first step that we're going to do is use some integer division to calculate our position of our snake. Look at lines 63 and 64. We're using a division operator that is going to return a floating point number. These positions need to be integers, so a double / definite returns an integer. Here is just a quick recap about data types to understand why we did that integer division. We're looking at a notebook in the lesson 4 folder. It's called Data Types Essentials. It's a Python notebook. Let's run the first code cell. And what this does is it shows us that different sorts of types. We're using the type function to find out the type. So 7 is an integer, 7.1 will be assigned a float, hello will be assigned a string, and true is a boolean. Now if we take a result, a variable that is a single / division, we'll notice that we get a result of 4.0, and that's a float. We don't want to float to do our pixels, so if we do the double / division, notice that we're getting back an integer, and that's what we want. Our next task is about improving the code, and we're going to change the geometry so our snake is defined in terms of squares, not pixels. Think of a chessboard, but instead of 8 rows and 8 columns, we've got 32 rows and 24 columns. So to do that is going to make our subsequent operations on moving and drawing the snake much easier. Define our snake position in terms of squares. So screen width, which is pixels, becomes number of squares x. The screen height is the number of squares y. We're going to come along here, and that's going to be -1, and that's going to go, and that's going to be -2. Next we move to our event loop, and we need to change these. Changes are going to be -1, we're just going to move 1 square down. This is going to be +1, this is going to be 1, and this is going to be 1 as well. And since our snake body is defined in terms of squares, when we come to make our segments, they're defined in terms of squares as well, so we need to multiply it by the square size to get the pixels, because the drawing is by pixels. There we go. If we now run our code, we can see that we have improved our code, but we have not changed the functionality yet. If we click on an arrow key, it moves 1 step in the direction of the arrow key. What we want to improve the code, improve the functionality, so that when I press a key, it moves constantly in the direction of that key. So let's do that now. The first thing that we have to do is to remove these. We don't need to reset to 0 every time. The second thing that we want to do is set both the x and the y. So I'm going to come around here. Snake dx, snake dy equals 0, 1. I'm going to let the AI help me with this, and that looks good. So we're setting both the x and the y increments. In fact, these are going to be directions now at the same time. Now we want the snake to move every time the clock ticks, rather than every time there's a key press. So I'm going to remove that. We don't need that. And I'm going to take all of that, and I'm going to bring it to the level of the while loop. I think that's it. In fact, it's just one more, I think. Let's have a look. That's in the while loop. Now let's test how that works. I'll run the code again, and we can see a strange thing. First of all, it coalesces into a single square, but as soon as I start pressing the arrow keys, it works by moving constantly in the direction. Notice a couple of things. If I press the up arrow, I can kind of reverse the direction. I don't want to do that. The snake shouldn't be able to kind of go over itself. Let's fix those two issues. The first one is to be able to say ignore the up key when the snake is going down. So I can put a guard here. I can say and where the snake is going down, which is x0, y1. That's good. If I come back and I have a look, we can do the same, put the same guard on each of those four things. We come over here, and that's right, and that's looking good. The second thing that we need to do is start the snake when it start moving. So we'll come over to the initial snake position and we'll start when the snake actually starts moving. Let's run that and try that. Let's run the latest version of our code. And we can see the snake starts moving. If I move it in the left direction and press the right key, I get no response, which is what I want. That's good. Functionality is now looking pretty good, but let's improve our code by refactoring some of the code in this rather long event loop into some functions. Maybe what we'll do is we'll create a function here to change the direction and maybe a function here to draw the snake. So to do that, let's have a quick recap about functions. And I'm coming to this Python notebook called Functions Essentials. I'll run the first code cell. This defines the simplest function ever. And what we've got is def to start up our function block, the name of our function, open and close brackets because it's a function, and then we have a colon at the end of that line to start the code block. We can have a single line or multi-line documentation string, a doc string, and then all this does, not very useful one, is return a value. That's defining the function. If we come along here to this, let's just show you how that doc string works. We come along, answer, open the bracket. What we can see is the doc string appears in the tooltip there. So let's invoke that function, and it's going to return the answer 42. Not a very useful function until we provide arguments. This is calculating the VAT on amount where the VAT is 20%. So we'll get a result. We're passing an argument and the return returns the value. We can have more than one function. Here we've got two, passing in, first of all defining the function with the two arg, and then passing in these invoking these two functions, passing in both arguments. Sometimes an argument wants to be an optional argument. It's got a default value. VAT by default is 20%. So here we are defining it with a optional argument, and then we can run it either with or without the optional argument. And we can also use a keyword for the optional argument here. We're back in the snake game code, and the lines that I've highlighted are useful for as a candidate for a function. Really kind of looking at the event and changing the direction. I'm going to get the AI to help me refactor this into a function. I'm going to click on the light bulb. I'm going to say extract a method, which is what I've done. I'll give it a new function name, which is change direction. Let's do the same with another piece of code. These two lines of code draw the snake. They're a good candidate for a function. So again, I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to click on the light bulb, extract method, and I'll call this draw snake. Okay, let's do things the other way around. We'll write a function, then we'll use it. I'll say a function to define if my snake is on the screen based on the x and y coordinates, and the AI has helped me. It's worked out the geometry. If the snake is x value is in bounds and the snake y value in bounds, that's absolutely fine. And so what I can do is I can come down here, and we've got our new snake x and a snake y, and what I'll do here is I'll say if the snake is not on the screen, then we're going to print game over. That's good. Let's run that. So the snake is moving. I can change the direction, but I can't reverse the direction if I press the right arrow, and when it gets to the end of the screen, the application exits. Exactly what we want. So that's it for lesson 4. In lesson 5, we are going to change our snake into a class, so we can move our snake, draw a snake, and so on. I look forward to seeing you on that video. Thanks again.